We're here today to talk about John chapter 8, and I hope and pray your journey has really caused you to think, has caused you to see Jesus in a whole new light. Jesus is somebody who definitely broke people out of the status quo, someone who said things which weren't always very popular at his time, but someone whose legacy, someone whose life we still celebrate today because of the man he was. And one thing we want to talk about here, we want to talk about two things specifically. John chapter 8 is a lot about Jesus defending who he is. There's not a lot of teaching going on. A lot of the religious leaders, people in his time, his contemporaries have approached him and said, wait a minute, who exactly are you? How are you healing on the Sabbath? How are you forgiving sins? How are you making these claims? And Jesus makes some pretty bold claims. I think the church has really calloused us to what these claims are, and we've lost their shock value. These are big stuff here. They're not, this is what I want to say, there are not a lot of people making these same claims which Jesus made. And early in the chapter, Jesus makes a claim that he is the light of the world. And that is a big claim, because for the Jewish people, when they were taken away into captivity, they were in darkness for a long time at the hand of a foreign oppressor, both Assyria and Babylon. And for Jesus to come in and make this claim that those who were once in darkness will no longer be in darkness, that's a big claim. That's a bold thing to say to people. That's something that if you say it, you better back it up. And Jesus does in many ways, in many miracles, does through some teaching, he does through his discipleship method, and that's something we're going to get into more and more in the weeks and days ahead. But Jesus really says that's a big claim. That's one of the most powerful images we have of Jesus, that he is the light of the world. We hear about him being a good shepherd. We don't necessarily know, we know a little bit about shepherds, but not a lot of us have experience with shepherds. We hear about him being the way, the truth, and the life, and that's all good, but that's tough for us to picture. But when you walk into a dark room and it's completely black, and you put your hand right in front of your face and you can't see it, you're going to notice a big difference. And that's what I want to leave with you. That with Jesus in your life, there should be a big difference. And I think that's at the heart of what he's getting at, that he's going to show you and illumine where you should go. Moving on into the chapter, he makes one more claim, and this one is the one that really gets a lot of heads turned. At the very end of the chapter, in John 8:58, Jesus says, "Before Abraham was, I am." That is super offensive to a Jewish person. That is something, if you heard that, we would be like, what did you just say? Someone says, before Jesus ever was, I was there. That would not sit well with us as Christians. That would not. Because Abraham was the center. He was the person who held up the Jewish faith at the beginning. God's chosen. This is whom God's favor rests. It was on Abraham. He was their guy. He was their guy. He was the person you would hear stories about. He was the people who all the fathers would say, if only our son was even somewhat close to Abraham. And then Jesus says, wait a minute. Before Abraham even came about, I'm the guy. That's something I really want you to understand. That's a pretty big thing for Jesus to say. He backs it up. We're very thankful and fortunate he does. But that shows you what he viewed of himself. That shows you the ascent, how far God had to come down. That this God is before all time, that he's in all places, and he's much bigger than we can understand. We shouldn't try to wrap our mind around him. We shouldn't try and change what God's trying to say in Scripture. We shouldn't do that, because he's greater and bigger than we could ever know or imagine. And that didn't sit well with the Jews. As we're going to see in the upcoming chapters ahead, Jesus' journey doesn't lead him to be exalted. It leads him to be killed on the cross. And that's a difficult road for a lot of us. Because I think a lot of us, when we come to know Christ, I think a lot of us hope that our life becomes better, that we're lifted up. And oftentimes, it does happen at times, but oftentimes the exact opposite happens. So I just want to challenge you. What do you believe about Jesus? Is Jesus big enough in your life that he is making a difference? Until then, this is John